Okay, a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for sharing your precious weekend with us to attend our REALink event. I'm Josiah from Lutheran Community Care Services, LCCS for short. Okay, I'll be MC for today. REALink was started in 2020 amidst the pandemic to create space to talk about pertinent social issues. And while we were grappling with the pandemic, we were thinking to ourselves, what kind of community do we desire to create? So we believe that all of us are interconnected and are therefore affected by what's happening around us. We hope that through our conversations, we can stay connected with one another. All of us can contribute in our own ways to make our community a better place to live in. Some of you here already know about LCCS, while others might be curious about what LCCS does on a day-to-day basis. So, the video we are about to share with you will introduce you to what we do at LCCS.
Lutheran Community Care Services was established in 2002. In LCCS, we believe that relationships matter. We work with and through relationships to build connectedness to experience shared humanity. Our vision is for all individuals to be engaged to build and sustain healthy relationships through focusing on our 4 key trusts.
Hurt people as pain that is not transformed gets transmitted. To break the hurt cycle, we believe that it is important to address harm and to make things right with others and ourselves. At LCCS, we engage people in restorative conversations in safe spaces to feel heard. Through sharing their stories, people can make sense of their experiences and work towards building and sustaining healthy relationships.
As everyone is connected and our actions affect one another, we believe we cannot work alone. Through workshops and trainings that we facilitate, we aspire to equip as many individuals as we can with skills and knowledge to build relational capacity. We have been very privileged to be able to create learning experiences with various institutions, including schools, government agencies, and practitioners from social service sector to impact change.
We envision to see safe and caring communities that value one another and embrace vulnerability. At LCCS, we bring individuals and families together and create positive moments where they can connect and experience each other. When the community takes leadership and ownership of their issues, they can discover creative solutions and build more meaningful connections.
It is possible for people in all systems to advocate for connected and restorative communities as a way of life. To live restoratively is to seek to understand even when it is difficult and to be aware about how our actions may impact others. Everyone has different life stories
That sprung from their families.
Be it sweet, be it bitter.
To us, relationships matter.
We invite you to journey with us to discover why relationships matter.
Okay, apart from our audience and speakers today who are physically present, we have others who have joined us online. A warm hello to you. Hello from virtual land. Thank you for joining us as well. So today's event is made possible with the support from Media Club Room, who have made available this wonderful space for us to gather. Before we start the conversation, I would like all of you to imagine and envision what kind of environment, whether it be school or community, can allow a child or a youth to thrive, to succeed. Today is the third part and an episode of our REALink series for 2023, and it's titled Communal Safe Net. In this session, we will explore the kind of community we desire to build for our children and youth so that they can grow and develop as individuals who are both resilient and compassionate. As our theme for REALink 2023 is ordinary people doing the ordinary, extraordinary, suggests We hope that through this conversation, we can be aware of the needs of our young and also to support them in whatever small ways we can. Our host for this conversation is Augustine, a former senior TV journalist and radio broadcaster. Together with him is Nicole from Impart, Shawn from Touch Community Services, and Janie, a mother of an 8-year-old child. Please join me to encourage them with a round of applause to invite them on the stage.
Hello and welcome everyone to the third in our series. And today the topic is Communal SafeNet. And joining me on the panel, we have Shawn, Janie, and Nicole. Thank you so much for making the time to be on this program. And so in the third in our series, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, and for those of you who are also following this program in the virtual land, we began with the topic Men Hurt Too, and then we had workplace culture and why people matter. And today we're talking about communal SafeNet for children and youth. And I thought it's best, and by the way, I'm Augustine Antoine, I'm the moderator for this series. And I thought it's best that we start, first of all, by getting each of our speakers to sort of just download why they said yes to this particular topic, communal SafeNet. And I'm going to give each of them about 2 minutes just to introduce themselves a little bit, who they are, where they're coming from, and why they said yes. So we'll start with the other end, with Shawn. I believe they're all the mics are live, yeah. Just go ahead and speak.
Mic test, mic test.
Otherwise, you can take the next one. Yeah, just go ahead, yeah.
Okay, mic test, okay. Yeah, hi, a very good morning to everyone. My name is Shawn. I'm heading the counseling department in Touch Community Services. So I work very closely with children, youths, families, as well as couples on various issues. Yeah, and I think particularly in Touch, we do see a lot of cyber cases, cyber issues like excessive device use, cyberbullying, and even pornography addiction. Yeah, so why do I say yes to this? I think in the online world and even in the community, there are a lot of harm and hurt faced or encountered by our children and youths. And sometimes when we work with families or even parents, they find it difficult to identify and spot some of these signs that would potentially tell them that their children are actually facing some challenges and difficulties, not only mentally, psychologically, but also in their school, physically, they find it difficult to face their peers. Yeah, so I thought there's a very huge area that we can discuss here, a very important one, so that anyone who is listening to this session here can also take away something to apply in their daily lives.
Thank you so much, Shawn. Janie?
Hi, morning everyone. I'm Janie, a mother of an 8-year-old girl. Why I would say yes to this session, I mean, I'm always very happy and very enthusiastic to share about my experiences with my daughter. And I mean, as much as I'm teaching her a lot of things, she's also teaching me a lot. And it's just nice to share and, you know, just share experiences with everyone. So whoever I come across, I just share my experiences and they share theirs too.
And you're a working mom as well.
That's right. I'm a working mom. I actually work with LCCS. And I work with the community in LCCS.
All right. Nicole?
Oh, okay. Hi. Hi, everybody. My name is Nicole. I currently head the mental health care arm at Impart. What we do there is that we work with children and youths facing adversities in the community. So when I heard, that the topic was about communal SafeNet, we were really excited because we actually conduct all our services within community spaces. And that in itself, right, we talk a lot about things like, and because we're working with children and youths facing adversities, a lot of times we think about physical safety. We got to do a lot of assessments. And we also think a lot about creating psychologically safe spaces in the community to hold conversations with children and youths. yeah, so sharing.
Yeah, so for those who are not too familiar with this phrase, communal safe net, maybe this way around, could you just paint us a picture? What exactly does it mean for your organization and for your work in particular?
Yeah, how I understand communal safe net is really, about how can I create safe spaces? And when I say safe spaces, in different domains, right? Physical safety, psychological safety, cyber safety, moral danger, kind of like concerns as well. How do we create safe spaces by empowering communities, empowering people around us, basically?
So, I mean, you actually play with the word net, right? As in, you hope to catch them before situation gets too difficult or too complicated?
Exactly, and I think in both ways, right? On a preventive front, more in terms of before things get bad, you want to have like a safe net that's involved in the community so that we can catch these children and youths before they go through anything. And on the other front, when they actually are already facing a lot of adversities and difficulties in their life, who are these people around them who can actually support them and help empower them out of whatever they're dealing with?
Come to think of it, I wish we had a net when I was growing up. I'm just trying to imagine, like, okay, we had our family, parents, I had two brothers, I have two brothers, and perhaps your community group, your neighborhood group, or your religious group that you belong to. Has that changed so much from the, now you get a hint of my age. Has that changed so much in the past as in what it is today? Do you see a big difference, Janie?
Actually, no. I think it's enhanced even more these days, at least for me, because I'm still a true believer that it takes a village to raise a child. And there's always people that you can tap on, if it's, if we are not as privileged to have like family members to support or like external family members to support, sometimes we have neighbors. We have friends, we have, communities that we subscribe to, and there are people there. If you'll just ask, there's help.
All right. Well, hopefully someone takes that first step. Shawn, you hinted quite a bit about technology. Is that the main difference, I suppose, when we talk about communal SafeNet in today's context?
Yeah, I think more in relevance for children and youth. In the online world, they feel safer because they are behind the screens.
They really do feel safer. They tell you this.
Yes. So in our group work that we have with our youths, we do have hybrid sessions, virtual and physical sessions. On the online sessions, they tend to be more participative. They will just feel safe and they just throw out any comments that they have, including the censored ones. But generally they do feel safer to share their opinions online. And also they tend to find peers, people whom they have not met before, whom they find that, I can speak to this guy quite well, I can relate to this guy quite well, probably because of common interests. And that's where they kind of find their sense of belonging online.
Yeah, we've always heard this phrase, real as in R-E-E-L versus real, R-E-A-L. But, when you look at online posts and social media posts and even platforms, a lot of people don't actually put their real photos or their real identities. You have a dog, you have a cat, a butterfly, or something that you made in the kitchen, or a picture of a place that you went to. So how is it that they actually relate to the online world more than the real world? Shawn, back to you.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's the connection that they get from these elements or these people or things online. Yeah, and whether they speak a common language, because the people in their real lives probably are not speaking the same language or on a different frequency. And that's why when they feel that I can't connect with this person, I can't be in this environment where everything is unfamiliar for me, I'm not comfortable, then they tend to avoid it and want to seek some place or someone who can be familiar to them and can be comfortable for them.
I hope so. They could end up talking to someone the same age, and then what do they know about life? What do they know about life experience? I'm just being a cheeky here. But Janie, how did we end up in that situation where they can't relate to their own mums and dads or their guardian or family members, but they open up their entire lives to some absolute stranger online?
Okay, I'm picking this out of some online stuff, right? But I think sometimes, even as a parent for me, right, I guess I'm not speaking the way, or I'm not speaking the way that my kid would listen, or I'm maybe not listening to what she has to say, without the words that she's using, right? So I guess that probably would hinder the relationship, and actually maybe not so approachable as compared to if I would just listen to something that she's not saying with words, right? But it's hard. It's hard to do that because we're in it, right? Yeah, I'm there itself, and I'm just as I'm in the situation. So sometimes it's hard, but yeah, you just learn lah.
Nicole, you want to add on?
I think, bringing the topic back to like more of a mental health kind of like perspective, I do think that digital spaces are a lot safer, just because...
Could you say that again? You believe digital spaces
Yes.
are safer?
Yeah.
Okay.
As compared to, real life kind of like spaces, just because there's a lot more, there's an opportunity or a choice for you to stay anonymous when you actually share about your problems, which are so vulnerable and so sensitive. And sometimes, especially in contexts where, in their own reality, people around them or they themselves hold a lot of stigma, right? About, parents telling them, don't wash your dirty laundry, out of the house and stuff like that. So it becomes easier to just really communicate and share about how they're feeling over digital spaces.
But some of the literature that I read, all three of you, feel free to jump in. And by the way, this is the perfect time to also start getting all of you to weigh in on this discussion. So we have a live audience here. You're seated in front of us. So there's a microphone that is moving around, so you can just get the mic and pose a question or perhaps even challenge the panel. And we do have our friends online who are following this discussion on the REALink LCCS series. And you can post your questions and comments, and our LCCS team will pick it up, and using the microphones, they will read it out aloud. So that's how we're involving you in the online world, as well as all of us who are present here physically. But I want to challenge all three of you. So this literature that I read, one argument is that actually online space, online opportunities is actually good because it's almost like the last resort. It's like a back door. And young people, teenagers and children, I'm not really sure whether children have complete access, but they'll find a way. They're actually putting out a distress call, or they're putting out some messages to say, I want to talk to somebody. The challenge is we don't know who is on the other end, whether it's a genuine person who's wanting to help, or someone who's going to add to the situation or to the problem as well. Shawn, on your end, because you also talked about the other extreme, and there's addiction and going down a different path, there's sort of a rabbit hole that's kind of hard to come out of, right?
Yeah, I think when it comes to online safety, ultimately, I think parents or even the support systems of children and youths, they can't possibly monitor 24/7 what their children are doing online or saying online. But what they can do is to make the parent-child relationship as the anchor. Yeah, so it's like attachment theory. In attachment theory, we talk about having a secure base. Yeah, letting the caregiver to be the secure base for the child. So if our children and youths, they have a strong relationship with their parents, they know that, okay, my parent is a secure base that I can go to for information, for help, for any other support. Yeah, in times of difficulties or when I'm learning something new, I can consult them. Then that is where they will learn how to differentiate where is the fine line between safe and unsafe. Yeah.
But you just opened up a whole set of questions. That's making one big assumption that the parents grandparents, and I've seen this for real when I take the public transport, guardians, domestic helpers, I mean, the list goes on. Even the next door neighbor who helps to, babysit for a couple of hours. All these people need to like have a sort of like a working degree in psychology or child psychology, and who need to know like, okay, these are the warning signs, this is what I should be looking out for, but the real world is not like that, right? So I actually sense a sort of a soft appeal for parents, grandparents, and even domestic helpers to go for sessions like this and sort of like get equipped. I'm going to jump onto this end of the spectrum. Nicole, you want to add on?
Yeah, that really is the idea of community, right? Empowering the community. When we talk about, it goes back to SafeNet, actually. Just within the digital space itself, a lot of times, maybe Janie can add on more as well as a parent. Sometimes parents, grandparents, and all the different layers of people around the child has different expectations and different just boundaries regarding digital usage. And so I guess it really depends on how they communicate and how they build, how they communicate within the community to be able to create that safe net for you, Janie.
Yeah, I guess sometimes, okay, so like for me, right, I have a certain threshold, like there's maybe an hour or two a day to, like my daughter's 8 years old, so an hour or two on YouTube, kids YouTube that is, because it's also safer, yeah, is enough. But versus, maybe her grandparents or people around me who help me, like I say, it takes a village to raise a child, right? Sometimes the people who help me to look after Praveen, my kid, right? They might not see it that way. They might allow her to use a little bit more, or allow her to watch a certain movie that maybe, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't allow, right? Something like that. But then I guess I just take it as it is, and I allow for that to happen. And of course, I'm always nearby, and I'm always close enough to pick up, because I know my daughter best, right? So I'll be able to pick out if something is just not right and talk to her about it.
It's nice that you actually have this time, and you have time management, obviously, in your household. So there are families who actually sit and watch a movie together. Yep. So they make sure that they do that together, so that as an adult or a parent, you pick up some signs, and you can just kind of casually say, "Oh well, that's TV, and that's not real world." And then they say, "Are you sure, Mom? I mean, I thought it's supposed to be a reflection of society, and then the conversation starts, right?" But that's an ideal household. I mean, in today's setting, you also have each child having their own room and their own space and their own technology. And so there's this notion of all of us sitting together in the living room, or for that matter, in the bedroom, and watching a movie together and having that common experience is starting to fade. Or am I wrong on that? Shawn?
Yeah, I think the intention is to keep the conversation open, for our children to just throw out all the questions that they have, and how we want to respond to that is really dependent on our own values and beliefs. Yeah, we can lay everything on the table for them to kind of compare the differences. Yeah, why is it wrong here, and why is this correct in this context? Yeah, and ultimately, we also, as parents, I'm also a parent, we want to let our children know that how we manage our own lives, and how it's important for them to also see us as role models.
How young is too young? When do you start a conversation? Because I'm going to put all three of you on the spot again. It's like, when I travel on public transport, I've seen families, the baby is in the pram, and the baby has already got a tablet in front. Seriously, the baby already has a tablet, personal tablet, I think, and it's like the babysitting already starts at that age. This is the world we live in today. So how young is too young when we start having a conversation? So I'm sure the parents choose something that is appropriate. Usually it's educational stuff, teaching ABCs and numbers, or little storytelling and stuff like that. I see a question coming in. Let's take that from my good friend Amber. Yeah, go ahead, Josiah.
Okay, so there's a question from online. It is stated that while there is safety and anonymity in the online space, how do we then connect to bring these youth and children back? I think in the context of bringing them back to their community, their friends, or their family, or school for that matter.
Well, one approach I've seen, I mean, to be fair to the social media companies, the main portals, they do have guidelines, they do have registration requirements and things like that. I mean, a lot of people can also go through the back door. But what happens when it's private communication, like talking to one another through WhatsApp? And a lot of young people nowadays do have to use these things for school, for research and stuff like that. Anyone wants to jump in? By the way, I finished my first round of questions where each one gets a chance. Now it's open and rapid fire. Anyone can jump in. All your microphones are live, so feel free to jump in.
I guess I could start with that question. I think it's an interesting one. You know, with the digital space, it provides them with an outlet, right? It allows them to be able to express themselves in a way that they might not think is possible in real life. So then, if we are trying to bring the conversations to real life, then we have to create the opportunities for that. And by doing so, it's you know, through having safe conversations. And when I say safe conversations, it's coming in non-judgmental, coming in curious, coming in really just gentle as well, not pushy. And this can happen anyway. It doesn't have to be like a very serious talk with a child, right? And then you say like, let's sit down at the dining table, I have something to tell you. And then it's very scary.
That sounds scary.
Yeah, it's
intimidating. The minute a parent or a guardian says, boy, can you just sit down at the table? It's like, okay, that's an advanced warning, like, Exactly. But you raised a lot of things here. Coming back to real life, really expecting parents to also be aware. I mean, I've met parents who have no clue on what's happening on the internet world, much less the kind of portals that are out there. You talked about safe, but then a lot of young people, at least the conversations I have with young people, they say, Mom and Dad will never understand, and my parents will never understand. Their starting point is they will never understand. How?
I think if I can just jump in, actually I kind of agree. I mean, I really agree with what Nicole said. Yeah, you know, about providing that space for the kids. I mean, for children to talk, right? Like, yeah, like I mean, I think it all. If you start from their younger age, right? It's about putting in place a certain routine, right? Like, you know, like no gadgets at meal times, or if meal times is not the time where everybody comes together.
No
then,
gadgets at mealtime sounds like it's like utopia. I've seen people sitting at a meal, like everybody's got a smartphone or some device next to them. So you actually would like to see a situation where all these things are kept on site, and then you have a conversation and a family time together.
Well, I guess I've seen it happen, so it's not like it cannot happen.
Okay, so there are success stories out there.
That's right,
okay.
There is. And I've seen. I mean, I've also gone over to my friend's place, and you know, for dinner invites or lunch invites or things like that, where I also tell them, like, you know, like, hey, can we all not have our phones there? You know, like when you see the other kids having the phones.
And then you can have real face.
And they do it, and it works, because then you start talking about things that everybody wants to talk about, especially the children.
But you need to be prepared to talk, right? I mean, some people can just sit there and not have a conversation. It's like you're floating on different orbits.
Yeah, I guess. So I think it's easier to put the kind of routine in place because it works for my family, right? For our values and the way we communicate. I mean, like, I talk a lot. So I think it's just easier.
You should have met the panel from Men Heard too. You know what was their solution? The men said, you should just go and see another guy or your friend and say, how are you? How are things going? You know, just start this conversation by talking. Okay, I hear you. Shawn, anything you want to add on from your experience?
Yeah, okay, because this question has a few parts, so probably I would like to just go to the part where you mentioned that the children and youth were saying that parents will never understand.
Yeah, don't understand.
Yeah, so on that part, I always look at the intention. When they come for counseling, I always look at the intention of the parents. When they are not able to understand what stresses are they facing in their own lives. Is it work? Is it family matters or financial issues? Yeah, so these are the things that probably when parents are aware that is something that causes them stress, probably they can also discuss or rather share with their children so that the children have a understanding, oh, I know why my parents are not able to come into the online world, play certain games with me and communicate with me, maybe via Telegram, those new platforms. Yeah, so that is like what Nicole has mentioned, a safe space for a conversation for the family. I thought that's quite important. Yeah.
I just want to let everybody know, I mean, as a moderator, I'm not avoiding the difficult areas. I mean, there are a lot of very complicated areas, I mean, just in Singapore itself, and I'm sure those of you who are watching us online from wherever you are in the world, you have young people telling each other, oh, you know, it's all so bad, let's all run away. And we have runaway kids in Singapore every week. You just need to look on the police social media platforms and you can see what's happening. Then you have at the other extreme, you know, life is miserable, let's end it all, you know, and then we don't want to go to that S word, and then you have notions of suicide floating out there. But I saw this really interesting video where the family and the children went to visit the grandparents. And at the entrance of the door, the grandparents had like airport security with the scanners, you know, and they had this basket. So when you enter the house, they scan everybody, and then every device that is on your person had to be placed in the basket, your pad, your phones, everything had to be taken out. And then they kept checking, and then they found another hidden phone somewhere on the person. So it was so cute that the grandparents said, you coming to visit us? All devices out. So like you really have to, you know, I mean, we can watch a movie together or whatever, but even that, leaving the television on, everybody's just watching the television, but there's no one is really talking, right? Nobody's having a conversation. So it's nice to hear that you say this. So I wanted to get all panel members to weigh in. What do you think about this word that you brought up, routine, like going for walks together, making that family meal happen, or even watching a new film that has just come out? I mean, we have come out of COVID, so now we can actually go to a cinema and watching a film together and coming out of the film and then having a little snack and talking and processing all this information. Thoughts, ideas? Because I noticed the conversation is always on the other extreme, when something goes totally wrong and bad things happen and everybody's crying and doesn't know what to do. I want to get your panel to your thoughts on that.
For me, routine is just a more atas way of saying, you know, that...
atas, by the way, for those of you who are not from Singapore, atas is mean? higher up. It's a high-end way of, yeah.
Yeah, so as I was saying, so it's just a better way of saying, you know, what really works for the family, a unique procedure for my family that, or for each of our families that works, and is very unique, it's very special to our values and the way we live together, right? So for some families, it could be, you know, it could be a routine travel or exercise, or for my family, it's just you know, spending time together, and that time that we spend together is just without the devices. I mean, because maybe also because my daughter is 8 years old, so it's easier to put such routines in place.
It's a great age to start when they're young, you know. But I am going to throw a couple of other words into the conversation, and then, for lack of a better word, you have families that are liberal and you have families that are conservative. I mean, again, sometimes it's not even a perfect family unit. You have single parents. You have people who have to literally, for lack of a better word, outsource their children to someone because they're both working and they come back late in the evening. It's nice, right? But what if the child comes back and argues with you and says, why are we so strict about these things? Why is it we can't watch these things? Why can't we play this game? Why can't we, you know, talk about this stuff? It's all no, no, no for you. It's all taboo. How? Moving forward on that?
Yeah, that's a tough one, huh? I really think, firstly, it's about, I think when we talk about routines and you know, just doing something that works for the families, I think that it is about introducing structure such that it relieves all the other difficulties in things like planning and stuff like that, because we already live in such a hectic lifestyle, right? So if you kind of just said like, oh, every Tuesday evening we're gonna have dinner. And then you don't have to like keep planning every week, which is very loading, right? You just know that every Tuesday when it comes to it, we're going to have family dinner, no gadgets. And so it takes away a lot of the planning, so a lot of the logistical concerns, and it also takes away a lot of the cognitive like stresses as well. Like, and I think when, you know, children and youths come back and they say like, hey, there's a difference in expectations and stuff like that, then it's a good sign, I guess, for you know, just parents, grandparents, caregivers, babysitters, nannies, so school, so on and so forth, to kind of get a bit of that communication in and kind of manage or adjust expectations.
What is the panel's position on actually schools getting involved? I know it's a lot. We're already asking teachers to do so many things, and this is not a very welcome notion. And again, some teachers may be very into it and some are not. And the topic I'm talking about here is media literacy. In some countries, they actually have it in their curriculum. It's media education. And today, they sort of like adjust it a little bit and call it digital literacy. Shawn? You know where I'm going with this, right? I mean, actually having this conversation in the schools itself, in the curriculum, from primary school all the way up to, you know, you leave secondary school or college or polytechnic, you know.
Yeah, I think like what you mentioned, there's already a huge load on the teachers themselves, and it's ultimately the child only spends a certain number of hours in school, and they transit from one level to another. So what is permanent is they will always be at home with their parents, their families. So whose role is it to take the huge bulk of the education in terms of media literacy and all that? It's hugely lies on the caregivers. Yeah, peers as well. Peers influence are also a key factor to kind of teach the children and youth on how they should act or how they should behave online. I think for myself, most part of my media literacy comes from my friends. Yeah, because my parents, they are not so familiar with the online world. So naturally, I have to figure out myself what's the right thing to do and how I should pick up some of these and make wise decisions online.
Precisely. You basically answered the question. You said that it's the role of the caregivers and families are important. Fine. I mean, I'm sure many people agree with you. But I've heard stories, these are actual stories, where parents do everything, you know, they have this routine, how much time, 1-2 hours time management, let's have a girl-to-girl talk, you know, daughter and mom, or father and son, or whatever it is. And then when they go to school, correct me if I'm wrong, 7 to 8 hours in school? Is that the deal right now? That's a third of the day in school, and 5 minutes in recess, and it's all gone. And this is from primary school. That means the families did everything, and all the things that you're suggesting, all the good stuff, and then 5 minutes in recess, and they're in primary school, and it's all gone. And the kids come back like, Mom, I need to talk to you. It's like, my friends have, or they said, you know, and then the whole conversation changes. How? How would you respond if your 8-year-old came back and challenged the status quo, so to speak?
Okay, then I just wish time stops there, right there. Right?
It's like, stop growing, don't grow, just be the 8-year-old that I know and mommy loves.
Well, I guess processing with her, like again having that conversation with her, and like I said earlier, you know, a lot of this I want, who said, and I mean, I'm really very thankful that she's even talking to me about it.
Okay, that's a good thing, right?
That's number one.
Yeah.
Now, number two is about addressing like where it comes from. Like, say, for example, okay, like this has been a conversation that has happened over the past few months. I mean, she came back and she's like, Mommy, I want a phone. You know, and I'm like, no, you do not need a phone. But she's like, no, I want a phone because then, you'll be able to track me and, you don't have to keep calling school and trying to get them to ask me to wait at a porch or anything like that. You can just straight away text me and I'll be able to
This is an 8-year-old talking to you.
That's right.
All right. They should join intelligence services.
But at the same time...
I'm telling you that parents who don't even know how to activate the tracking thing. It's like, hello, what track? What are you talking about? It's like, okay, but anyway, I hear you. We all hear you. Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah, but so my digital literacy comes from there. But anyway, but at the same time, she also sees that sometimes, many a times, my phone is not exactly a luxury to me. It's actually a device that I just use to communicate, and then I put it aside. I don't use my phone for anything else, and I put it aside. And she sees that, hey, actually, the purpose for the phone is for work situations or things like that, or even just to contact and that's it, put down. So I don't want to be carrying, and she said, she doesn't want to be carrying something that she just uses to communicate and that's it. So she doesn't really see the phone as a device to, play games and all that. That iPad is a different thing, lah.
Yeah.
We were just talking about phones. So that's how I managed to sort of stir away from that phone incident. Yeah, where she comes back and asks for a phone. But actually, when I really sat down and I processed with her, right, what she actually wanted to talk about was that how her peers have gadgets or have things that she doesn't have.
What she really wants to talk about is belonging. It's becoming, it's like that network and not having, this is just the medium, right, to get, it's like, I am mom, I'm seriously being left out, and people are out there. Okay, now there's a lot of other social issues, poverty, access to all that. All three of you, if you don't mind me putting on the spot, have children or nieces or nephews or young people that you relate with. How do you have this conversation? Because if they know that, Auntie Nicole is in this line of work, it's like, if I go to Auntie Nicole, she's a good listener and she will listen to me. I wish my parents were like that. Do you get that kind of stuff?
Not really.
Not really, okay.
Yeah, but with the youths that I do work with, yes. Generally, it comes more from the context that they come from vulnerable backgrounds. So sometimes the youths might not just be as fortunate or as able to, at that point in time, to receive what others can at school.
You care to unpack what's vulnerable, so that our audience can follow you?
Yeah, so when I talk about vulnerable families or families who are, or children and youths going through adversities, this can be, things like abuse, neglect, or you can go from the other way of bullying, just a lot of different difficult events that happen in their lives, including things like family backgrounds, social, economic status, things like that, yeah.
Why is this going on? We've all gone through school and we've had our ups and downs. Shouldn't there, Shawn, I want to put you on the spot. 8 hours in school, about a third of the day in school. Shouldn't there be some sort of clear guidelines and some open discussion on campus in the schools and institutions? Without having to put the additional burden on the teachers to teach all the other subjects and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. For this, I think the parents have to make it clear to their children, what's the intention of me putting you in school in the first place. Yeah, so if it's for education and helping you to increase your knowledge, so that should be your priority. Yeah, that should be your main focus. But if you want to have a sense of belonging, you don't want to be left out, you want to have things that you can have to relate to your peers. I think naturally parents, maybe it's a strong word to say, shouldn't dismiss, but it should be back to the open conversation part where we can explore. Yeah.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm sensing from the panel that really one of the key takeaways is families are fundamental. Parents, guardians, even single family situations, you are the first and the most important part of the equation, that you should do your part to bring up your children and your teens and spend time with them. three of you don't seem to believe that the schools or the teachers and the others should have a equal responsibility, so to speak, because they have so many other things to do. Janie?
Yeah, I don't think it's very fair to put it on the teachers who, even though, yeah, the teachers and schools, you know, they get to see my daughter longer than I do, right? But I don't think it's very fair, because I think a lot of it happens in, I mean, a lot of the teaching happens at home, right? Happens from what she sees people at home do, right? Like what my daughter sees people at home do. Like, for example, if she sees all of us like on our gadgets, or even working all the time or something like that, that's something that she's going to pick up, right? So no amount of education and saying that, you know, they're in school, or no amount of what the teachers teach or all that would change what she already perceived in her head, you know. So I think a lot of it has to happen at home, and the pressure shouldn't be on the teachers to teach and inculcate. I mean, they can support, but not to put it into the child.
All right. Now, all three of you also do social work, and you work in different types of settings. It's the home stretch. Believe it or not, the conversation has just been going, and unless you have questions from the floor, feel free to just, yes, go ahead, sir. Just help yourself to the microphone, yeah.
Hello. Yeah. So I mean, as the panel was sharing, I'm recalling a friend actually that is a mother of 3 children. I think her oldest is in secondary school. I remember having a conversation with her, and she was adamant that my child will not have a phone. My child will not have a phone, and I think when it came to school assignment, and if you remember 2 years ago, it was COVID and everything.
A lot of
teachers
children
were
had to
taking
manage
on
home-based learning.
Yes, home-based learning. WhatsApp was a normal platform to converse in, and my friend actually did something very different. She told the school that having a phone is not mandatory. So you find other means to convey to my child, and it's your job as a school to not make her feel left out. And so this is her sort of parenting, fundamental family values, and I just thought that, you know, this is something that's very different and unique, and I just wanted to comment.
But life is changing. Huh? I mean, the COVID situation also led to NGOs purchasing laptops, refurbishing, or at least making sure that, it works properly, and then distributing it to the lower income families so that the children can continue their home-based learning. And then others providing access to internet, because we make this a big assumption that I give you the device, but you also need access to internet to do the work. So that's one side of the equation. But today, in this stretch, thank you for that comment, by the way. But in the closing stretch, I also want to get all three of you. I leave it to you. You've handled so many cases, profiles, difficult situations you've been in yourselves. Do you want to flag one of them, but hopefully you have a little bit of a nice ending in that particular case, Shawn? How do you manage to work with this young person or child or teenager, and what's the situation right now?
Okay, I try to answer in relevance to the question. Yeah, I do have one case previously that I managed, and it's a single mom. Yeah, she has a son in his, I think at that time was 15 or 16. Yeah, and she was like what this gentleman's friend mom's parenting style is. She restrict a lot of his device use. Yeah, to the point that the school really had to try other means to convey certain messages or even assignments to the mom, rather than using WhatsApp or other online channels. Yeah, so this parent and the son didn't have a good relationship to begin with. Yeah, and unfortunately for this case, the tensions increased over time, and there was a lot of hate between parent and child. And the topic is always on device use. Yeah, so the youth stand is, I'm already a youth, why can't I have access to my devices? Because that's the way that I get my motivations, my sense of belonging. I feel connected. And the mom is a working adult, so she doesn't have much time to spend with him. And at that life stage, I think that that boy, he's always hanging out with his friends. Yeah, he has no intention to go out with his mom for meals and all that, because that's the life stage of a youth. Yeah, we can't deny that. Yeah, so yeah, so eventually I think things didn't turn out too well, and they decided to live separately. Yeah, that's the only unfortunate thing. But
how old is the youth?
I think around 15 or 16 at the time. Yeah. So they decided to live separately because living together was a pain for both of them. Seeing each other was also a pain. And so they decided to live separately. The mom decided to pay the rental expenses for the boy living at another place. But eventually things turned out well because the boy was managing his own education together with the school. So communication was easier. The mom decided to just let go of everything, even though she kind of have that given up mentality. Yeah, so things work out for both parent and child.
But how did they meet you? I mean, how did this, was this someone came and approached you or got help?
Yeah, so the mom called in to us to help to address her son's excessive device use. But in our assessment, it's not really that excessive. But there were some underlying family issues between mother and son that were not resolved.
Okay, as the moderator, I am just echoing I use this method of echo is just to repeat certain things, and I still leave it to you, the audience, to make those hard decisions. You really need to make a hard decision on whether to have a device or no device. That's number one. That's what I'm picking up here. And how far can you go in today's world, in this current climate? Is your child or your teen being left out? Growing up in today's context. I know a lot of people actually donate their old devices to poor families and poor children, not just here, but even in other parts of the region in Southeast Asia, because it's an important part of growing up and having access. Personally, I'm very sad to hear that situation, but it's nice to know that they have someone like you, Shawn, to reach out to and to talk to. On the other end of spectrum, Nicole, you want to share something?
Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, there's no right answer. There's really no one right way or a perfect answer or a perfect solution at all to any of these issues, which is why we kept going back to the point about having conversations with them and entering safe conversations about, not just dishing out instructions from a parent's point of view, but also trying to listen to what the child is trying to tell you without a judgment. And I think in that sense, at Impart, we do work with a lot of children and youths who, there's a lot of excessive phone or digital devices kind of usage, and then the parents they swing into the extreme end of removing all access. So they switch off the Wi-Fi for the entire day. And then, there's a lot of frustration that builds up in the youth, and then they react, and this emotion will come out in another way. Even if it's not through digital usage. It comes out in another way, and then, then the parents are like, why did this happen? But it comes full cycle. So instead of maybe swinging, the question here is, can we move to a compromise? Or can we negotiate? Can we move to a middle ground with the child or the youth? And that's what we usually try to do with the children and youths that we see. Yeah.
By the way, we didn't skirt the other side of the conversation, and that is laws. I mean, in various cities around the world and countries, laws are now becoming more and more important to protect children, to protect minors, and if it gets worse, people will be prosecuted if they are doing things that is absolutely wrong in the eyes of the law, especially when it comes to children and teenagers. But we're in the home stretch. We have about a couple of minutes panel. So remember I told all of you, you need to think about whatever it is you want to say. Yeah, go ahead, Janie.
Yes, actually, I wanted to share, as I heard my two friends here speak, right? I also wanted to share, like I said, a learning experience that I also went through, right, with my kid. So she just got into primary school like last year. But before that, there was no need for her in preschool. There was no need for her to have a device, and it was a lot easier for me to like give her maybe half an hour or an hour of the device a day. But I guess there was a repercussion to that, because when she went to primary school and they needed to do, like online learning, she didn't know how to use the computer very well. So then it also got me thinking that, that there has to be a level of compromise, and I wish I had done it a little earlier, where, then she would understand like how to use the laptop a little bit more. I mean, at least, at least a fair bit to follow up with her peers. So yeah, I guess that's also a learning part for me, where I understood that there has to be a balance. Like she has to have, because of how the world is today, she has to have a little bit of like a little bit more than an hour at least to learn how to use and maneuver around the computer and the internet world, and at the same time, having a very healthy balance.
Yeah. By the way, you can agree or disagree with all of us, including me, the moderator. But my personal take is, I'm a strong advocate of media literacy. I really believe it. Of course, it should happen at home. I keep hearing this word conversation, and so I'm going to echo that. So I hope all of you are making an effort to have that conversation. I know parents usually, when I have conversation with parents, there's always this, I'm not comfortable talking about this. Can you talk about this kind of stuff to them, And then there's also this emphasis on getting the teachers who can like so many things to do in school, and then you're getting teachers to also play their part, and they are also human at the same time. The other thing is having this understanding that you should know what the red flags are and seek help, right? I mean, it's like, if you want to continue and pretend that everything is fine and they'll sort things out, it's also not a healthy approach. And if you see some red flags, seek help. So in closing panel, if you want to point out anything and also suggest some solutions or point them in a certain direction, remember you have time to bring all that up. But one last check with our audience here present in the room and our friends online. Anything you believe we are not addressing head on that you feel that we should be flagging? Yeah, go ahead. Just patiently, it will come up. They'll bring the mixer up. Yeah.
Okay, morning. Yeah, so I guess thank you, panel, for sharing and really just sharing about your heart behind creating a communal safe space. I would say that in some sense, what it sounds like, it is really that like what Augustine has mentioned, media literacy. I think as a youth, right? Okay, I'm a youth. So as a youth, I think there is always that need to also be able to know, like if there is a device control or device restriction at home. I do also want to have that balance of not wanting to feel left out in my friend group, because what happens in one family differs from another. But I guess, it's really just letting the youth and children and youth understand what you will be exposed to at the very beginning, because a lot of the approaches that has been observed is really when something happens, like for example, when we talk about addiction, game addiction, pornography, these are things that when it occurs, then parents fumble to kind of address it. But if it is being addressed at the very beginning and is brought out as a conversation, it makes it a lot easier for the youth to say that, or for the children to say that, today I saw this advertisement on the net, and they are more willing, and it's easier to have the conversation. It's just like how it's not even just about the cyberspace. It's also about in reality in terms of having conversations about sexuality, sex, and etc. Difficult conversations, mental health, whatever, and so forth. So I guess, I mean, you know, I do hear the panel, we have touched a fair bit on cyberspace, but I think it actually correlates and parallels to the reality, the space in reality. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and it's wonderful that I wanted to bring this up, but it's always nice if our participants, the audience, actually flags it. So, spot on. A lot of families still find it difficult to talk about a range of topics from A to Z, and my personal position, like I said, you can agree or disagree, is that if you have a total restriction on devices and equipment, you are cutting off yourself from the world. Because there's a lot of beautiful stuff out there. There's a lot of good things that you can learn from. I mean, literally learn, you know, and use it in your life. But at the same time, the world is mixed, right? And you're exposed to a range of issues, sexuality, sexual orientation, suicide, games, gambling, and the list goes on, right? But that actually comes back to that C word, conversation. I mean, if every family, every parent, every guardian created a little bit of family time, or let's take a walk, let's watch a movie together and, you know, process and talk, wouldn't the world be a whole lot better? So we are into the home stretch. Panel, you can really take this in any direction. But before I get the panel to sort of weigh in and also perhaps, you know, give us some tips and solutions, the QR code has been constantly flashed throughout our REALink conversation series, and I want to just bring it up once again. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes at the Lutheran Community Care Services, otherwise simply known as LCCS, and I just want to get your to be aware that this work cannot just continue without support from the community. As it was said, it takes a village. So do contribute whatever you can. You can scan the QR code, or you can get in touch with the LCCS team to see how you can help them with their programs, with their projects, and the various initiatives that they have running here in Singapore. And if you're watching all this from online from anywhere in the world, do reach out to the LCCS team to find out how you could replicate whatever it is that you see being talked about or mentioned here in Singapore in your cities, in your countries, wherever you are in the world. Home stretch. Over to you, Shawn. I calculated each of you has about 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I think yeah, I'd like to share something about hope with everyone, because I think hope is a key element for someone to work towards their goals. And when our children and youth, they see hope, they will be driven to put in effort to work towards their goals and find different alternatives and ways to work towards a certain goal. Yeah, so as support systems or even parents, caregivers, we have to find ways to instill hope. Usually hope relates very closely with positive emotions. Yeah, so when we dismiss their ideas and all that, they would have a lower level of hope. Yeah, so with hope, then we will be able to see new things. We'll be able to see growth coming out from our children and youths. But if we know that there are some dangers, then we have to take certain actions to inform them, but at the same time also still helping them to have that sense of hope to continue to pursue what they are looking towards. Yeah.
Janie?
Yeah, I think actually it's very important to have conversations, you know, at an early stage with our children and with the whole family. I mean, if possible, I think it's very important to have conversations, because, and it's not easy. I know it's not easy for a lot of people, especially if it's not a habit, or if it's not something that is usually done, right? But you know, I mean, just like any other habit, I think it takes about 14 days, right? 14 days for a habit to start or stop. And like that, you know, in very small baby steps at least, if we start having conversations with our children or people who look after our children, you know, in terms of the communal safe net, right? Starting to have conversations like that would just sort of like ease the process and allow the children to, you know, sort of like approach us or people who they know are safe to talk about things that we may not be able to catch with our eyes, right? So yeah, I would think like having conversations in a circle. I know LCCS does. We sit in circles and have conversations and ask very questions that are very with intention, proper intention, to address a certain missing conversation or a certain something that they want to talk about. Have conversations.
I'm just smiling as I was listening to Janie because I just have to add this little story. I was amazed by the patience of this mother. I mean, I take public transport, so I see and hear all these stories. The child kept asking, "Why is the sky blue, Mom?" And I want to see how this one gets handled. And it's like the mother tried, you know. But the point here is, I like what you said. You need to have conversations, and it's, you know, as early as when they're little children, when they're close to you. That's so precious. Eventually, the mom gave up. It's like, why can't you ask me questions that little children ask? You know, like, how did you get to such a complicated stage? You know, but it's a beautiful relationship. And you know, there are a lot of other sensitive things that we all don't want to talk about. But you need to make that step, because if you don't, who else is going to do this for you? Like telling your child who can touch you and who can't touch you, and where is it appropriate to touch you and where it's not, it's a no-go. People, I wish we had more time. Maybe LCCS will bring this into the next REALink conversation series, right? But think about it, it's really in your lap. You have to, but you are never alone. You can seek help. You have all these wonderful people and organizations that are out there to journey with you. Final comment, Nicole.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed listening to the audience perspective. I thought it brought up a really important point that at the end of the day, it's about knowing what we can and cannot control. And a lot of these things that our children and youths are receiving are out of our control. They come no matter whether you like or don't like it, or whether you agree or don't agree with it. But the end goal over here isn't to get them to my children not being exposed to this. Sure, there are systems that you can put in place to prevent that. But the end goal that we want to work towards is, how do I get my children to say that I choose to engage with this content or I choose not to engage with this content? That's really what we can do in terms of shaping or empowering our children. And adding on to Janie about conversations, I think opening up conversations also start with our image or perception of the child. If we are seeing them as, how come they always just keep using the internet? How come they're not talking to me? How come they are like this? Or how come they are purposely doing this, right? Then our conversations also start with, how come you're always on your phone? And then that's a bad start to the conversation already, because they already feel like, I'm not going to engage in this, or I don't want to hear this from my parent, or whoever, caregivers, school. Instead, if we saw the child as curious, if we saw the child or the youth as being the ability to be empowered, the ability to grow, then our conversations can start a lot more with, hey, actually, how are you doing these days? Yeah.
I want to close with this true story, no need to mention names. Teen boy playing Xbox at a certain game level. By the way, I don't play this game. I have no idea how it works, right? First of all, mom knocks on the door to enter the teen son's room. And then the first thing she says, boy, what level are you at? Wow, that's a very enlightened mom who actually knows what level of the game is. So this mom actually knows not to break his, because he's trying to reach that point, right? Then mom actually just quietly sits on the bed next to his, because most of his kids just sit on their bed and play the games. This is a true story that was narrated to me, and I thought, wow, that's a great relationship between a mom and a teenage son. And that boy carried that Xbox all the way through university years. Yeah, he never gave up. There's actually a school of thought out there that these games actually, if you know how to manage your time, do contribute to your growth. And there's a whole conversation out there that you can subscribe to the literature too. But my point here is not about the game or the time or even the worries about addiction. It was the relationship between the mother and the teenage son. And I want to leave that with you in your mind. I know sometimes when people come into the REALink conversation series, they're looking for solutions. They're looking for this toolkit. It's like, just tell me what to do, you know. Life is not so simple. But the fact that you're here today and you're journeying with us on the online program is already the first step. And all we want to say is thank you so much. And please join me in giving a round of applause to our three wonderful panelists, Shawn, Janie, and Nicole. You have their profiles on our website. You can always look them up and the organizations that they speak for. And of course, please continue to follow the REALink Conversation series. The next one in our series is called Rekindle Relationships, and we're looking particularly into the very important area of welcoming our ex-offenders back into society and into our lives. I'm Augustine Atwan, and all I want to say is thank you so much. The journey continues. A round of applause again.